Hey everybody, this is Brad Bruce and I'm with
Jace Marsiglia.
And you're listening to the 5195 podcast, the show that's all things pop culture. Speaking of pop culture,
yeah,
what is your introduction into pop culture?
Oh man, the heavy question for episode 1, huh? All right.
Yeah.
Just from a young age, I kind of rifled through my parents' VHSs, and I was really enamored with the artwork on Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Okay.
Yeah. Spielberg's, and I just remember thinking this thing looks amazing. It was the Struzan artwork, and it was the one where he's, kind of cracking the whip over his head in front of like columns of faces and all that stuff, and it just looks so fucking cool. And I was just like, whatever this is, I got to see it. So every weekend was like movie night at my house, and I was just like, why don't we watch this one? I pulled it out of a drawer, and they're like, oh yeah, cool, So we watched it. It was exciting. It was hilarious. It was fucking scary. It was everything. It just took me for a complete ride, top to bottom. That was when I really became a fan of something.
Because you had seen movies, obviously, prior
to
that.
I grew up on all the kid shit, and plenty of stuff. I mean, like, I wore out Wizard of Oz. Mm-hmm. That was a big one at my house.
Yeah.
My folks they'd record a lot of like Halloween specials and stuff. Like, I wore out Garfield.
That's awesome.
Garfield's Halloween.
Yeah.
It's the Great Pumpkin.
Yeah.
I always had a proclivity for Halloween type stuff. When I wanted to watch Raiders, it was like, I'm just giving this a chance just based on the art.
Yeah.
It pulled me right in just as a kid. And after I watched that, it was just such an experience that I was like, I got to watch more movies.
Yeah.
Movies like this, because it was nothing wrong with the kid movies I used to watch, but it was like, I felt like I really watched a movie.
It's your first foray into cinema.
It really was like what cinema could be. Because, everything you watch as a little kid, it's safe zone. It's all happy and goofy. And, I think at the time I'd seen stuff like Harry and the Hendersons and, probably E.T., stuff like that. But Raiders was the first one where I felt like movies can be an experience.
Right.
Like, this is huge.
Right.
And that was when it even made me kind of retroactively go back and watch movies differently.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, I mean, like, it was just a weird transformative experience watching that movie. It made me want to be creative. It sparked something. But it also made me want to study, So it's so weird because when you're a kid, you don't really think about studying. But that movie made me bust out the old Leonard Maltin book.
Okay.
Do you remember those like dictionary thick fucking things?
Yeah.
It was Leonard Maltin's 1987.
Okay.
Thing. So, I mean, I must have been 5 or 6.
Okay.
Obviously, I was born in 82. So that was the book where I'd look up Raiders. I was like, okay. And then I was able to use the index and see who did it. And I was like, oh, Steven Spielberg. Okay. Oh, well, I'm going to start looking for Spielberg movies. And they were peppered all through my parents' collection, stuff like E.T. and all that. And it just kind of blew my mind. I'm like, the same guy? Same guy did E.T.? That's awesome. So that was the switch that got flipped, where it was like, I need to study specifically movies, because I was always reading books. Yeah, I was a bookworm. I was a comic book guy. All of those things are pop culture. I had all the media, but Raiders was the one that really flipped the switch, where I was just like, dude, there's a whole world of this stuff out there. Like, it made me serious about it.
That's awesome. Mine was E.T.
Yeah.
Like, that was mine. Like, that was my introduction. Because, again, the same thing. It was the Christmas specials, the Halloween specials, the Saturday morning cartoons, that it was low dose stuff. It wasn't like, because I was almost like, I didn't have the attention span to sit and watch an entire movie.
Did any of us at that time? I mean,
exactly.
That's the thing. You mentioned Saturday morning cartoons. That was like the epitome of entertainment for me.
Oh yeah.
I got up early, dark, sun. It wasn't even like dawn, and I would start watching whatever started around 6 or 7, and I would just watch it till about noon before going outside.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because noon was, at least for us 80s kids, I think bowling would come on after cartoons or golf, and it was just like, this is the adult shit. I gotta go outside.
Time
now.
to get out of here.
You know?
Yeah, it's time to get out of here.
Yeah. So I mean, I've had my cereal, I've had my cartoons. I'm gonna get going.
It's time to go. Time to go to work.
Yep.
It's time to go to work. Yeah. No, it was me. Like my dad would always take me out of school. Like on opening release, yeah. Like I remember like the first one that like stuck in my mind was E.T.
Okay.
And I remember seeing a teaser trailer for it in the theater for something else.
You were there for something else.
Yeah, and saw that.
Which that teaser didn't give you much.
Not a thing.
To my knowledge.
Not a thing.
To my memory.
Yeah, no, it didn't. It really didn't.
Is that the one that was basically it showed the woods and like
that's the one
purple font?
That's the one.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the one. So, so we went. It was like already relatable because of Elliot, like Henry Thomas's like performance. I was like, oh shit! It was almost like it was me.
Oh yeah,
up there, so I could relate to.
He was every
thing.
kid.
He was, yeah.
And
then finding this alien, and then this adventure that they went on, I was hooked, and I see literally dozens of times in the theater, like dozens of times I saw this thing, and so that was like. And I was
saw
obsessed.
You saw it before it became E.T.
Yeah, it was opening day.
Like okay.
Yeah,
gotcha.
I don't remember the date offhand. It was like June something 1982.
It was a summer gateway movie.
Yeah, it was, and it was awesome. And it's like merch that literally was like kind of what really got me into, I guess you would say, collecting. Because I had, like all kids in the 80s, we had toys,
lunchboxes.
Yeah, and with E.T. it was like. I wanted to set something up on a shelf and look at it versus playing with it. So that like that introduced me to like collecting, and it just grew and grew and grew. And it wasn't because this was in Texas, in '82.
Yeah,
and it wasn't too much longer after that we moved to California, like '84, '85, and obviously new kid in town, didn't know anyone. And I have older brothers who kind of took me under their wing. It was a love-hate relationship. They were substantially older than me. But I still was like, kind of like part of the crew, like they accepted me. And so it was cool, So having that, I wouldn't say matured faster because I'm fucking still not mature, but I had a better grasp on reality versus kids my own age.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, because like they introduced me to shit I probably shouldn't have been introduced to. Like violent movies and just crazy like subculture life. It's like it was not cookie cutter at all.
No.
And I remember like going down to the first time I'd ever walked into a video store was like right down the street from our house. This old video store called Video Barn. We didn't even own a VCR. Had to rent the fucking thing. Renting a stack of movies and. Just watching like movies, and
just at your leisure.
Yeah,
you could stop it.
Yeah,
take a piss break.
Exactly,
grab a snack.
Exactly,
it's just such a totally different thing from going to the theater.
It really was. It was so much fun. But the other one was George Romero's Dawn of the Dead.
Really,
they put it on, and like I was terrified.
Sure,
but also just glued. I couldn't take my eyes off it. Even though I was hiding my eyes, I was still looking through my fingers.
Sure. That's an intense movie.
It is.
Especially
really
if you're young.
Very young.
And you've never experienced such carnage.
Yeah. They actually took me when it premiered in 78 as a fucking 1-year-old.
So you probably weren't entirely cognizant.
I don't remember a goddamn thing of it.
Sure.
I just know that I was there. And like kind of a funny moment was... at like all these horror conventions and stuff that like so many of us attend. Romero was at one in Burbank, and I remember telling him, I was like, I was at the theater like when it came out, and he was just like, "What were you, fucking baby?" And I was like, "Pretty much."
Yeah,
and he was like, "It's weird, but okay." And I was like, "Well, it was his fault." It was like my older brother. He's the one that took me, and he's like, "All right, man, like okay, that's cool." But
cool older brother.
Yeah, but it was like. Every weekend, no matter what we rented, whatever new release it was, Dawn of the Dead was always coming home with us.
So that was your go-to, and then whatever else you watched was just, it happened to be in the stack.
That was it. That was it.
That one was the anchor.
That was it.
Okay.
Yeah, and like getting back to E.T., it was like by now, like summer had really kicked off, and it was like I moved to town during summer, so it was neighborhood kids. It wasn't school kids, So it was like the group of friends that I met were basically kids on my street, kids on the next street.
Yep.
And it was like, and of course I had seen other movies, obviously, like, Halloween, stuff like they would play it on TV, and so I was aware of them and I liked them, but there was just something about that movie that was just like, man, this is fucking crazy.
Really?
Like, this is crazy. And it stuck in my mind the way E.T. did. And it was like, because obviously it was relatable because it was like a kid movie, and like it was just
with heavy themes.
Very, very heavy.
I mean, the movie's very emotionally manipulative.
Oh yeah, 100%.
I mean, it's a kid movie where you're watching him die a horrible death.
Yeah.
The kid is dying with him.
Oh, it's very dark.
It is.
It's very dark.
And that's the funny thing to our younger listeners. We always joke about the 80s being such a tough era for movies.
Yeah.
Because what people considered a kid's movie back then would never fly today.
Hell no.
Christ. I mean, just something like E.T. would be picketed out of the fucking theater because they're like, why would you show this kid dying with this poor little thing?
Yeah.
You're traumatizing children and blah, blah, blah. It would have been, for lack of a better word, canceled.
Definitely. Yeah.
But yeah, it was, and I mean, of course, who among us didn't fucking cry buckets watching that movie, as a kid?
Yeah.
But we didn't, I never felt like I was watching something that was too complex for me.
Yeah.
E.T., I mean, it's very basic. Mm-hmm. It's deep, but it's not confusing or complex.
Yeah.
It's an experience, and it's kind of funny when you watch it because it's like they kind of kill E.T. just to bring him back. Mm-hmm. It's a very manipulative movie.
Yeah.
But you fucking don't care. It's so entertaining.
Not at all.
It's such a classic movie, and it's such a ride.
Mm-hmm.
Like we were talking about Raiders of the Lost Ark, and again, it's funny that we have that Spielberg parallel that was kind of
that was our catalyst.
Yeah, that was our catalyst, and it was like E.T. more so than Raiders. I would wager is so much more relatable to a kid.
For sure. Yeah,
I like Raiders, the sense of adventure, the almost nonstop action. Mm-hmm. That's shaking the keys in front of a kid, for lack of a better term, because it's the cool, shiny, awesome thing. And every kid loved the idea of treasure hunting or getting into this huge fight on a cliff or something. I mean, everything we did was supposed to be like the coolest adventure ever. Mm-hmm. Whereas E.T., we all had bikes we could hop on. We all trekked around the neighborhood and down bike trails and shit. And it was so much easier to be part of that world than to be like, I'm gonna go out and punch some Nazis.
Right.
You know what I mean? Or I'm gonna go into a there's no temples in suburban America,
Yeah.
So you really had to kind of create that sense of adventure for something like that, or just go for the ride.
Right.
Whereas E.T. you could emulate. You could go out there and play E.T.
For sure. And I did obsessively to where I literally would like call my friends on the phone, a phone that was attached to the wall in our house.
If you wanted privacy, you had to drag the cord to like the laundry room and shut the door.
Yeah, exactly. And I would call them and I'm like, hey, do you guys want to hang out? Do you want to, and they're like, well, are we playing E.T.? And I'm just like, no, we're not. Okay, and we get there and I'm like, okay, well, we're fucking playing E.T. Like,
Brad, why are you wearing that red hoodie?
Which again, I did religiously. Like, I mean, I remember my mom taking me all over just to find this goddamn thing.
Really?
Yeah, and it was like I was wearing it like here in Southern California in summers. They're not exactly mild.
No, I was gonna say I'm like that. You're wearing layers in the middle of summer.
Yeah, and it was just like, okay, I get it. I fucking get it. You like the movie. Just take the goddamn thing off before you die.
Right. Yeah, you're going to melt out here. But that's funny.
No, it was, again, like I said, E.T. was awesome. And then, obviously, George's Dawn of the Dead was just like, wow. And that was kind of one of those movies that made me want to see other horror movies that were gritty and raw. That weren't, because I love the Universal movies.
Oh, yeah.
But it's like they weren't that,
No, and especially when you're a little kid, there's something about black and white movies that kind of separates you from the action. You're kind of like, I need something more entertaining.
Right.
Not entertaining in that sense, but like, you know, Wizard of Oz starts in sepia, and then all of a sudden it's brilliant Technicolor. Wizard of Oz was like, as a little kid, it didn't matter to you that this movie was like, at the time, like 50 something years old.
Right.
This is colorful and amazing, and like the yellow brick road to the green hue of the witch. It was just one of those things where this is the cool, bright, shiny thing I can look at, you know. So black and white movies, I think most people, unless that's the first thing you ever watched and you got used to it,
right?
I think younger kids, even today, are like, black and white. Mm-hmm. It's so boring, and it's like you don't learn to have an appreciation for that until you become a cinephile, or you know what I mean, like just someone who can appreciate what they did with what they had at the time.
It's speaking of Wizard of Oz. And because again, I mean, it's like, I love Wizard of Oz. Like,
sure,
it's a badass movie.
It really
like
is,
you know. But I don't know if I read it in a magazine or I saw it on television. I don't know where I saw this. I remember, pun intended, a peek behind the curtain.
Okay,
when she lands in Oz before she opens the door.
Yeah,
it's still sepia.
Yep.
Okay, I had heard that there was a double that played her, and they painted that house in sepia.
Oh, I believe that.
And her dress was sepia.
Yeah.
Okay, and so Judy Garland is right off camera, and when she walks up to the door, she's sepia. The house is sepia. So when she opens the door, it's to color.
Yes.
But the house is painted that color. And when the door opens and there's a little bit of a push in, she grabs the dog from the girl and walks out in her color dress.
Sure, yeah.
Because
when she opens the door, she's literally leaning into the shot, opening it, and backing out.
Yes,
you know.
Exactly. And like that's when they did the old switch, you know. And so that was actually the first time that I ever heard a story of a behind the scenes of a movie, of how they did a trick, you know. And this was still early, you know, mid 80s.
Sure.
You know, and I was like, oh, that's cool, because it never registered that thousands of hours goes into making these things.
Oh God.
You know, it was like I never it was just, oh, here's Dawn of the Dead, or here's Wizard of Oz, you know, here's E.T. They're there.
They are what they are, and they exist in their elegance because they exist.
Right.
It's not, you're not cognizant of all the work that went into it.
Right.
You're not cognizant of all the people that worked on it.
Exactly.
All the wasted film on shots that didn't go anywhere or flubbed lines, you know, until you've really dove into like behind the scenes stuff.
Right.
You're like, holy shit, man, this was an undertaking.
Yeah.
And so ahead of its time.
Definitely.
I mean, I look at that movie now as an adult, and to me, it's just a marvel.
No,
you know?
agreed.
It's so cool.
Yeah, agreed. So, again, you know, like, I mean, you know, growing up in the 80s, everything was movies for me and toys, like most kids.
Sure.
Probably a little more obsessive than most, I think. Like, it really grabbed a hold of me when I had friends that wanted to skateboard, or they wanted to BMX, you know, like they were doing that stuff. Like, I was gravitating towards cinema.
Yeah.
Not even knowing what it was. And of course, you know, I'm sure you were a comic book fan.
Yeah.
You know, so it's like you had books. Mm-hmm. It was just something, it was an escape.
Yeah.
You know, like it wasn't a movie, and I was creating, even though the lines were there, creating the tone of the story, of like the delivery of the way I was reading it, the way this character was, you know, saying the line.
Sure.
You know, so that was another thing that was kind of forming. It was all these little pieces of like this, like ingredients for this recipe.
Yeah.
Of like, I think I'm going to be a filmmaker. Like, and I didn't have that. I didn't have that epiphany until I was probably 16, 17 years old when I was like, I think I'm going to be a filmmaker.
I was a lot earlier than me.
Really?
Yeah. I was in my 20s.
Really?
Yeah. When I decided,
I'm going for it.
Yeah.
So after us, you know, kind of filling our minds with all of this shit, what jumped out at you to where you're like, I think I want to do this in film. You know, it's like I want to direct, or I want to art direction, or I want to write, or I want to fucking, you know, do effects, or
Sure, just the thing that really kicked it into high gear.
yeah.
Believe it or not, it's another parallel to you. You mentioned George Romero's Dawn of the Dead.
Yeah.
Mine was Creepshow.
Really?
Creepshow. Yep.
Okay.
I was kind of a pussy when it came to horror movies. I had this swivel rocking chair in the living room.
Yeah.
It had a full 360-degree spin on it. And distinctly, I remember hiding from arachnophobia.
Okay.
Because it's just
With good reason.
fucking army of spiders, which is just terrifying. Alien, Ridley Scott's
Okay.
Alien. And then the one that really kind of it frustrated me a little bit because I wanted to see what my dad was talking about, but it was the 1988 remake of The Blob.
Great movie.
Which is fucking-tastic.
Yes.
But he turned it on, and I didn't really know what it was, and I was watching it, and it was the part where the fucking drain clogs in the diner. So the guy's kind of reaching into the drain, and without even knowing what the movie was, I was like, this looks bad. What is going on? You know, there's no music. He's just kind of reaching into the drain, and all of a sudden, something grabs him. I spun that fucking chair so quick. And my dad, he's in the recliner right across from me watching it. And all of a sudden I hear just melee. It's just crazy what's going on. I go, Dad, what's going on? What's going on? Because I can't look. And he goes, the guy is being pulled through the sink drain. And I'm like, what? And it just sounded like the most horrifying thing. And he goes, oh, yeah, it's not pretty. It's not pretty. And I'm like, Dad, a sink drain? That's ridiculous. And he just goes, oh, it's pulling him in. He goes, there's blood everywhere. He goes, this is pretty gross. So I'm like, oh, my God. But that was the time where I was like, what am I missing by pussing out over this shit? You know what I mean? Like, because it was just, I remember I even did it with Jaws.
Okay.
Jaws was on one night. My dad tried to get me to watch it. I couldn't make it past the girl at the beginning.
Wow.
Because arguably that's an intense scene. The screaming. It's scary. It's very realistic.
Yeah.
But I tapped out. I tried to watch it again months later. I think I got to the part where the two schmoes are on the dock with, my wife's roast.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
And the dock is chasing him when he falls in. Tapped out. I'm done. I'm like, this is just too fucking intense for me. I can't do it.
Yeah.
I don't know how I got to that part without seeing the Kittner. I must have missed the Kittner. I must have left the room or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
Because I feel like I would have tapped out then. Because the Kittner death is really fucking intense. But yeah, I just remember seeing the dock chasing the guy and going, I don't want to see this.
Yeah.
Oh my God. So I really had a bad relationship with horror. And then one day, my dad's channel surfing. It's sometime in fall. It's close to Halloween, so there's a lot of scary movies on. Yeah. All these little, local networks. And he turns on this movie, and it's Hal Holbrook and Fritz Weaver playing chess. And now I know it's the end of the crate story. Yeah. Okay. And he goes, ooh. He goes, you would probably like this movie. And I go, what is it? Is it scary? And he goes, yeah, but it's fun. Yeah. And I go, okay. And I go, what's it about? And he goes, hang on a second, just watch this. And that was when the Fluffy, the crate monster, breaks out of the crate underwater, and then it dissolves into a comic book frame. And I went, whoa, what is this? Because I've never seen anything like that where a movie just stops and turns into a comic book. I'm like, what is this? So I was totally stoked. But then the movie ended. Back in those days, for whatever reason, probably for commercial, the 2-hour time slot, they cut out their creeping up on you.
Oh, really?
It just wasn't part of the movie at all. So for years, I thought, every time I'd watch Creepshow, I thought it was a 4-story movie.
No shit.
Had no idea.
Okay.
And I would read the little Leonard Maltin book, Yeah. It mentioned some story about bugs and shit, and I'm just like, maybe I missed it. I don't know. It didn't make sense to me. I'm like, what bugs? Yeah. So it ends, and there's that amazing fucking Rick Catazone animation where the camera pulls back and the creep is holding the comic book next to that candle, and then the candle blows out, and that perfect fucking John Harrison score, that piano pounding. I'm like, I'm in. I'm like, this is a scary movie I want to see, because in the 5 minutes I've been watching, there's animation, there's all these colors, there's, it's going from real life to comic panels. I'm like, I've never seen anything like this. And he goes, I don't remember what it's called. I remember seeing it with your mom at the theater. He goes, but it's a good movie. He goes, next time it comes on, whatever it is, he goes, I don't remember the name, but look it up. So I grabbed the TV guide, Creepshow, 1982, 2 out of 4 stars. And I'm just like, okay, I'm like, that seems a lot cooler than what they're giving it here, Yeah. But I'm like, okay. So I kept it in the back of my head. And it was probably about a half a year later. It came on again. It was like during the summer.
Yeah.
And it was going to be on one of those fucking off-the-wall local channels.
Okay.
That you, at the time, if you had an antenna and you didn't have cable, you had to like adjust the TV just so to get the channel in. So it was going to be on from like 2 to 4, and I'm like, I'm gonna watch this fucking movie this time. Yeah. So I get out with my mom and my brothers. It's just summer. I don't know what we were doing. Went out to eat, and I'm like watching the time. I'm like, it's almost 2:00, Mom. We got to get home. We got to get home. And she's like, Jesus Christ. Okay. We get home, and we're a little bit late. I turn on the TV, and I'm fucking with the antenna, trying to get this channel to come in through the fuzz. I sit down on the couch, and I'm watching, and Vivica Lenfers is in the graveyard in Father's Day. So I'd missed 15 minutes, 20, whatever. And as soon as my butt hit the couch, Nathan's zombie hand shot out of the ground, and I fucking hit the ceiling. I jumped a mile. I was like, I hadn't even gotten settled, and the movie's already fucking making me jump. So I was like, okay, don't turn away. Just watch. And he chokes her out, and all this. And I'm just like, okay, this is awesome. Just watch it. So I'm like, okay. So I sit through the whole thing, and it is brilliant. Yeah. It is just the coolest fucking movie I've ever seen. And I just remember hopping on my bike and going to a friend's house and just describing this movie beat for beat. Just like, you've got to see this fucking movie. It's amazing. And I just remember that day so vividly. I literally felt every molecule in me change creatively. Yeah. I was like, okay, not only do I absolutely love horror movies now, and I got to see them all, but I had no idea horror movies could be this cool. It was like, it broke every rule I thought I knew about horror movies. It was fun without being traumatizing. It was scary without being gross. I mean, it is gross. But it was just one of those deals where I'm like, I didn't know horror movies could be funny. Right. For one, because this is a very funny movie. And not knowing EC Comics, not really knowing about all that. Okay, yeah. I was just kind of enamored with the fact that when something scary happened, the backsplash of everybody would go into those cool panels, and the colors would turn garish, these greens and reds and all that. It was a very colorful, cool movie. And that was the one, much like Dawn for You, where I was like, okay, not only am I into movies, but I'm into horror movies, and I want to be a part of this. Right. I want to make something that makes someone else feel the way I feel right now watching this movie. I felt so inspired. And it's just funny to me when even as an adult, when people were like, what's your all-time favorite horror movie? You probably can't pick.
Me? Anyone in general. When
you're asked.
Oh, yeah, no, it's fucking impossible.
And I flat out say with no hesitancy, Creepshow.
You can do that.
I can do that. And the only reason I can is because people are obviously going to go over Halloween, over The Exorcist, all these movies that are on a technical level better. Okay, yeah. I go, here's the thing, dude. I wouldn't have even pursued those movies if Creepshow didn't get me at that age, at that time, that day. And so to me, even if there's movies better than Creepshow, that's the one where I'm like, we wouldn't be having this conversation if I didn't watch the movie that afternoon. Right. So to me, yeah, that's my horror movie because that's the one that started the entire affair. Okay. So it's not even a matter of, it's my favorite because it's just the best. Right. No, it's my favorite because there's a resonance there. That movie flipped a switch that I didn't even know I had. Okay. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I get that.
So yeah, there's better stuff out there. There's classics that are just unbeatable, but this little B movie that Stephen King and George Romero did once, which is, to my knowledge, his only #1 movie. I believe. I'm pretty sure.
I think so. I think
pretty
you're
sure
right.
he said that was the only one that charted.
Yeah,
you know,
I think you're right.
it was kind of this movie that nobody really talked about. It was like my favorite thing ever now. Like, this is the movie that I want to make. I'm always chasing Creepshow no matter what I'm writing. I'm looking for that high again. That's what that one did for me.
When did you see the film in its entirety?
Uncut, uncensored.
Yeah.
My brother and I used to stay with my Uncle Mike. He lived in an apartment just shy of Metro Airport in Detroit. And he would take us to the video store, and this is a topic for another day.
Okay.
But my folks, being born in 82, I was born right in the middle of like the Satanic Panic.
Okay.
Okay. So everything was bad, especially with horror. So my folks were not going to rent for like Friday the 13th, Nightmare on Elm Street, Halloween. All these movies my friends were watching, they were like, fuck no. I watched 2020 last night, and
Yeah.
it was that kind of thing.
They drink the Kool-Aid.
They did. And I was like, but I want to see more scary stuff. And my friends are talking about these Freddy Krueger movies, and they're just like, no, I saw the news.
Yeah.
It's too much. So Uncle Mike, and if he's listening, hi, Uncle Mike. Thanks for this.
Yeah, thanks, Uncle Mike.
He used to take me to a place in Dearborn Heights, out where I lived. I lived out, Dearborn Heights was just the city that we went to, and it was a little strip mall, and there was a Little Caesars, a laundromat, and then a place called Video Zone. It was this little hole in the wall joint. It's a mom and pop, which obviously we know were the best ones.
100%.
And we went in, and I'd look around, and I mean, this place was a library of tapes, and I found Creepshow and was like, "Will you rent this for me?" And he's like, "Yeah, I guess." I don't know if he even knew what it was. He's just kind of like, "Yeah, cool."
How old were you?
7 or 8.
Okay.
And what's funny about that experience, we take it back, and within a minute or two of the movie, Tom Atkins is like right in the fucking garbage, and I'm just like, okay, this isn't like
this is not TV.
They're dropping F-bombs here.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm like, this is not the one I'm used to. Because at some point I wound up taping it on an old Kodak, and I took out the commercials. I don't know if you remember how you could pause it and then wait for it to come back on, and it would be a seamless commercial-less thing.
Yep.
So I had it taped, and I wore that fucking tape out watching Creepshow. I knew it word for word. So going in like 5 seconds in, and I'm like, this is already different. It was so much gorier and scarier than I was used to. I actually broke my turn away moment. I actually covered my eyes when the one kid goes under the stairs in the crate to measure the bite marks.
Okay.
Because on television, Fluffy jumps out, he hits it with a wrench, and then it kind of tackles him. And then you see Fritz Weaver haul ass out of the basement, and you see the kid get dragged into the crate. That was enough. That was all they showed on TV because they censored the shit out of it. I watched this one. He gets his eye ripped out of his face, and then it bites the entire back of his head off, and you see brains and all this shit. Scared the fuck out of me. I was just like, oh my God. I'm like, this is the R-rated cut. I cannot believe how much fucking scarier it was.
Yeah. But
then I got to see the 5th story. Never saw the 5th story. So it was so weird when the crate was over that I'm like, there's one more. And, I'm going to see this now. And it was fucking insane. All the roaches and shit. But it was just one of those deals where by the end of it, that experience, it had completely changed my viewpoint on the movie. Not in a negative way at all. It was like I unlocked secrets that I didn't know it had. I'm just like, wow, this is what I'm used to plus, And I pretty much swore off watching movies on TV after that. I'm like, no, I got to watch stuff uncut. I'm
losing stuff.
Yeah, I'm losing tons. I'm like, my favorite movie of all time, and I didn't see any of this shit when it aired.
So it's almost like you got to see it for the first time.
In a way.
Yeah.
Especially in a completist kind of way.
Yeah.
I mean, they even edited stuff out like when Ted Danson and them get shot in the head in that like watery black blood comes out. None of that was in the other one. I was like, wow, that's pretty cool, you know. So I mean, Savini's shit was just gone for the most part.
Well, I mean, understandably.
Right, you know, but it was just one of those deals where I was just like, wow, there was a whole amazing movie under all this shit.
Yeah.
And that was the first time I actually just sat and watched the entire thing and was just amazed, re-amazed. You know?
For sure. Yeah,
so,
totally.
Yeah, and by that point, what was funny though about living during the Satanic Panic and all that, and I didn't grow up in a Puritan house. They just were like, the news said slasher movies are trash.
So no.
So I'm not going to.
It's a no-go.
But they were super cool about renting monster movies. So I got to see stuff like The Fog.
Okay.
I got to watch, you know, Aliens, Predator. You know, but for some reason, if it was paranormal, Poltergeist 1 through 3, you know, whatever, that was okay. But I had to go to my friend's house to watch the fucked up shit.
Yeah,
you know, the slasher stuff. So that was what was kind of cool, because that was like my forbidden fruit. I'm like, I got to see what this Jason and Freddy shit is. And I had to, if I stayed the night at a buddy's house, it was like, we're going to rent this one. My mom doesn't give a shit. Oh, cool. All right. Yeah. So that just fed.
See, and I was that person that people came to my house.
Oh, sure.
To experience that.
Yes.
Because I never had any of that kind of like rules or, you know, you can't watch this, you can't do, you know, you can't, we're not renting this, you can't.
No, but when I look back on it now and even thinking about it this moment, I was there first.
Yeah.
So you're the bumpers baby. You're the one that's going to be in saran wrap. You know, you're in all the special packaging. They're not going to let anything happen to you.
Yeah, and I was the baby.
Yeah, so I mean, by that point, you know,
there was no new car smell.
Yeah,
it was just like, whatever, go fucking do it. Who cares?
Right, yeah, the other one survived.
Yeah, so you're fine. You're fine.
So yeah, for me, it was very protective and very. We're not going to let you watch that trash.
Yeah.
Apparently, the news. Barbara Walters said there's nothing but tits and fucking drugs, and those were going
to make me want to watch it more.
Exactly. And I'm sitting here like, wow, these movies. If I'm not allowed to watch it, it's got to be pretty cool. You know. But that was their thing. It was nothing against them. Nothing. I mean, they're new parents, ish.
Yeah.
And they're just kind of like, yeah, I'm not going to expose you to that stuff. But I got to watch plenty of monster movies, and that was kind of that was sort of my go-to anyway. Even when I started renting for myself, I was like, I want to see a werewolf movie over a Jason movie. You know, not that I didn't like them, it was just the prosthetic effects, you know, the work that went into creating monsters, particularly in the 80s. That's what made me really interested in what goes on behind the scenes. You know, I wanted to know how they made Fluffy, the crate monster.
Right.
I wanted to know how a bunch of roaches can climb out of a guy's throat. You know, I'm like, that kind of stuff. That was when I was like, I need to find out how you learn this shit. That's kind of the beginning of Fangoria. That's when you were able to kind of crack something open and go, oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
No,
this mustachioed cool. Italian, you know, making the coolest shit I've ever seen in my life, you know. But that was it, you know. And it was just, I never really, you know, slasher movies, even though they were kind of forbidden in my house. I never really felt too frustrated by it because I was more into monsters. I was more a monster guy. I enjoyed the occasional animal attack movie. You know, it was just stuff like that, because the slasher movies I didn't learn to appreciate until later, which a whole separate set of skills. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it's still a lot of hard work and a lot of cool makeup that goes into it, but I loved seeing stuff like the Change-O Head and American Werewolf, you know, stuff like that, you know, the bladders and all the stuff that goes into a on-screen transformation.
Yeah.
That was my bag. You know, that was the shit that really got me interested in just who does this? Who makes that happen? You know what I mean? So yeah, Creepshow and my love affair with horror is what made me want to know the technical stuff. And how do you get to do that? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like, if I'm going to have a job, I'm going to do something cool like that.
Yeah. No, that is cool. That is cool. You know, you're speaking of animal attack movies. My favorite animal attack movie was Alligator.
Oh, I love Alligator.
Yeah, like that.
Is that Louis Teague?
Yes.
Yeah.
I remember watching that at a drive-in.
No shit.
Yeah. And like just fucking terrified of sewers.
Really?
Yeah. Just fucking terrified. Because, you know, it was real. And, you know, because alligators are a real thing.
Well, not just that, but during that time, it was a very real urban legend that they were all in the sewer. They were pets that got flushed, you know. Yeah. So, I mean, Louis Teague and Sales, they jumped all over that urban legend, just made it real.
Yeah, that was fun. And then it was funny because years later I found out that it was Kane Hodder.
Yeah.
That was in the suit.
In the alligator suit?
Yeah.
Oh, shit. I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah, I thought that was really funny. Like,
was it just him? It looks like the kind of thing that would...
Well, because this thing was like 36 feet. You know, this thing was fucking... The way they shot it, it was like 36 feet, you know?
It's a lot of puppetry. There's a lot of tight close-ups for it.
Right.
Yeah, the Kane's in that fucking thing?
Yeah.
I'll be damned.
Yep. It was one of his first things that he had done. You know, when I decided, I was like, I want to really do this. It was a trip to the video store. I was a little bit older now, and of course, it was still. I was able to actually own my own copy of Dawn of the Dead, and I remember we were at the video store. And my brother's like, look at this. And he shows me this this VHS, and it says Document of the Dead.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And I was like, what the fuck is this?
Yeah.
And he's like, it's the making of the movie.
The movie you're obsessed with. Correct?
Yeah.
How cool is that?
And I was like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
You know, so we rented it, and it was like, you know, went home.
What a fly on the wall kind of thing. It's so
God.
cool,
Like,
you know?
It literally, you're right, because when you watch, that is, in my opinion, is one of the best documentaries ever. Ever. Yeah. Like, because it is just, especially for being such a hardcore fan of that film.
Well, not just that, but nobody was doing that.
No one was doing those documentaries. No one was doing that kind of stuff. And, you know, it was crazy that, like, you know, that they had the wherewithal to film that, you know, and like then, you know, them making a movie about, you know, putting it out as a documentary. I mean, I watched that thing so much again as well, and it was just like,
you're seeing people hone their craft.
It was the first time I ever got to see Tom Savini speak.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Because I had only seen him in the pages of Fangoria.
Exactly. Yeah. He's the familiar face behind all these cool things.
Yeah, that was it.
You know, but yeah, Tom Savini.
And then the first time I heard that, like, cool fucking voice he had, and always a cigarette in his mouth, and just, like, cool as fuck. The same with Romero, always a cigarette in their mouth, you know, and it was just like, I fucking love these guys.
The thing about that, particularly Document of the Dead, that... And, you know, to another extent, Creepshow, which there's documentaries about Creepshow, more retrospective. Yeah. There's nothing quite like... There's Savini footage. And, in fact, I remember eBay years ago, I bought some rip some guy made called Tom Savini's Home Movies. Okay. And it's about 2 hours of just his home movies from the set of Creepshow. And only nerds like us would sit and watch and be entertained watching him poke individual hairs into the fluffy mask, or making a mold of Ted Danson's face, or I think one of the big things on that one was the stunt. It might have been Daryl Ferrucci. Is it Daryl Ferrucci? I'm gonna fuck up his name. Daryl Ferrucci, I believe. I could probably fucking work on that.
Probably should.
But I didn't know he was the crate monster. He was fluffy. Those shots where you see his eyes. Okay. Those big fucking scleral lenses. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Which just are fucking painful, you know. But yeah, seeing him put these contact lenses in and then stand in like a semi-crate set to do that iconic shot of those eyes. And stuff like that, where I was just like, anyone who would walk in and watch me watching this would be like,
what the fuck is wrong with this guy?
Yeah, why are you watching someone just fucking around? You know? And I'm like, no, you don't understand, man. I want to be there. Yeah. I want to be on this set. I want to be doing what they're doing. I hadn't at that point known or thought of writing.
Okay.
Writing was something that came much later. Like I said, in my 20s was when it was like, you know what, I'm going to try my hand at this. Because I didn't think I had the talent or the skill to make a movie. But I knew I wanted to tell stories. So I'm like, I'm going to learn what you do, Daryl Ferrucci. Okay.
You got it.
There you go, Daryl. I'm sorry.
You got it.
I didn't, the craft behind it looked fun. And even Document of the Dead, Romero's sets just looked like a party. They look so fucking cool.
Uh-huh.
But I was like, I would love to write it and then just watch what I wrote come to life.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I was like, I'm perfectly happy just being the storyteller. Obviously years later, learning more about it and stuff, I'm like, yeah, I'll run cables. I think that'll be cool.
Yeah.
I'd love to be in the room while someone's making a mold or putting bladder effects and shit.
Yeah.
Because I want to learn it. I want to learn all of it.
Right.
But my passion would be in creating something from nothing and making a story that hopefully a team would go, oh yeah, I could do that. That sounds awesome.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Yeah, we'll do this.
Yeah.
It's just like, all right, cool. Let's make something fucking awesome.
So then, okay, so with that in mind, what'd you do? Like, how'd you start? Like, when you were like, okay, I'm going to be a writer.
What
was it?
Such a fucking nerd that I went to a bookstore and bought How to Screenwrite. Like, it was like a book called Screenwrite. It wasn't like for dummies.
Yeah.
But it was like How to Screenwrite. And it taught me how to format. It taught me industry formatting. And I was so gung-ho about this. I wrote two or three full scripts on
Feature scripts
on Microsoft Word and painstakingly moved the margins.
I mean, that's a step above a typewriter.
It is, but it was like, and I didn't care.
Very archaic, man.
Very.
Yeah.
I mean, now we have programs that just fucking do it all for you. You could just write.
That's where I'm at.
Exactly.
I didn't cut my teeth on that. I literally went, right into...
Straight into industry programming.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I didn't even know that stuff existed when I decided to do this. So I just went into Word. I was like, okay, I got to have this font. I have to have this size. I got this margin for dialogue. I learned it, and I had this book, and I just had to I'd sit there and highlight and make notes. I'd have Post-its in it and shit, and I cranked out over the course of a couple of years 3 scripts, full-length scripts.
Wow. That's pretty fucking good.
Well, what's funny, the first one I did just to see if I could do it, just to see if I could complete it beginning to end, I wrote a Creepshow 3.
Oh.
Did I ever tell you about that?
No.
I wrote a Creepshow 3 knowing damn well it wasn't going to be seen. I didn't have any... I knew all about copywriting and stuff. I just wanted to see if I could do it.
Yeah.
So what I did was I took those old... those Alan Schwartz Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark.
Okay.
You remember that trilogy
of
from the
course.
80s?
Yeah.
I took 5 stories, short stories, that I liked, and I put my own spin on them, and those became my 5 stories for Creepshow 3. Okay? This is long before an actual Creepshow 3 came out and shat all over the franchise. Mm-hmm. This was like, I'm gonna take these stories. Yeah, I didn't come up with them, but I came up with all the dialogue, and I changed, because some of these stories in those books was like half a page.
Yeah.
And some of the stories I chose were like half a page. So I was like, I'm going to just take this and expand on it.
So you built off of that then?
I used it like a blueprint.
Okay.
And I came up with my own wraparound. And what it was, the wraparound was Billy, the voodoo doll kid, the Venus flytraps. He's now an adult. He's working in a antique store. And a guy who had recently been fired comes in with a gun. And he's just like, I know the old man has something in the basement, like a trunk. And he goes, I'm not leaving without whatever he's hiding in there. He's basically just robbing the joint, basically, And I had the creep from Creepshow 2. It was like the shop owner. because he was like, you know, the paper guy in the second one. That was his disguise, you know, at the beginning. He comes out as the shop owner, and this guy blows his head off. And then he goes, you, basement, let's go. And what I had was when Billy's being walked with his hands up to the basement, we pan over to the creep lying dead on the floor, and we go up, and his brains and the blood on the wall spelled Creepshow 3. And then it pans over to the what would you call that? The showcase window? Like the window out front.
Yeah.
The creep from the first one, the skeletal one. He does his cackle. We turn into a cartoon, and there's the opening credits, you know. And I even picture, as I'm writing, of course I didn't write it like this, but I wrote it thinking that's where John Harrison's score is going to just pound in, you know. So, yeah, I segue into these stories that I just kind of tailored to modernize, and I made them my own. And when we circle back to the epilogue, Billy leads the guy down into the basement, and he goes, it's over there. And he goes, all right. He goes, you don't move. The guy with the gun, you just stay right there, fucker, you know. He goes over to this thing and starts trying to break the locks off of it. Billy runs upstairs and locks the door, and he's like, what the fuck? And he starts to chase after him, and then we realize that this trunk that he thought was full of riches, it's the crate. The crate's in the basement. And I had Fluffy climb out, grab the guy, and just like the first movie, I had him biting the back of the guy's head off, just pulling brains and shit, and then it froze, turned into a comic book, issue 3. That's the cover. And I ended it like that, and I thought, this isn't great. It's never going to see the light of day, but I did it. Mm-hmm. I wrote a script, and it was about 110 pages.
Fuck.
For my first go. You know, I mean, it was, again, I'm taking probably cumulatively out of those 3 books, 5 pages worth of material that I decided I can make this a bigger thing. I can make these stories bigger. And I added my own scares. I even said in the script when, you know, I think one of the stories I took was the red dot. You know, you remember the zit that turns into spiders? Basically, the story was about this hot exec chick who's just totally vain and shit, and there's like a commercial they're wanting to make, and it's coming down to her and this homely looking chick, and she's just like, oh my god, I'm just gonna fuck the boss, and it's in the bag. You know what I mean? She's like, I'm hot, you know.
Yeah.
Well, she fucks the boss. A spider lands on her face while they're sleeping, and the story wound up being one of those deals where even if you know the ending and that it's going to pop and all these baby spiders are going to come out, I had it where it kept getting bigger and making her look like she's so vain that she's just like, God damn it, this fucking thing. And the spider that landed there, it's been tormenting her. Like, she'll be at home looking at the zit in the mirror. I'm just like, Jesus Christ. And all of a sudden the spider will drop down right in front of her. And she's like, fuck. She can't smash it. It keeps getting away. It's just this nuisance, you know. At the end, her and this chick are pulled into the boardroom. And they say, congratulations to this chick. And she's like, but I slept with you. And he's just kind of like, yeah. Looking at her like... that fucking thing on your face is really gross. So she just goes, all right, okay. So she walks out of the conference room, goes over to her desk and grabs a letter opener. And then she goes into the bathroom and just starts pouring hot water, scalding hot water on this letter opener. And some chick's in the bathroom. She's just like, hey, did you get that promotion? And she kind of shoots her a look like, fuck you, get out of here. So, okay. You know, she leaves. She takes the letter opener and just pops the fucking zit right off her face. And I had this little stream of pus hit the mirror, you know, and that was it. She's like, fuck you, you know, I'm fucking done. And then all of a sudden you start seeing shit crawl out. And then I had it where when they all start coming out, like in mass, the background turned into a web. You know what I mean? Like an animated web behind her head. And then you see her just getting covered and falling over screaming and blah, blah, blah. And then the one who actually got the commercial, she's the bigger person. She's, you know, in classic EC style, the person who deserved it got it.
Right.
She goes into the bathroom to basically be a good sport and be like, I'm so glad that, just to be a nice person, just to add sweetness to this whole ordeal. She goes in the bathroom and the chick is dead in the stall. And she's sitting kind of against the tiles.
Yeah.
And her arms are kind of up like a puppet. They're all held up by webs. But her eyes are open, and then you see all these spiders crawling in and out of her mouth. And then it would stop and it would dissolve to the panel. That's the story.
Yeah.
So it was stuff like that where in the book, it's just she takes a bath, spiders come out.
Yeah.
And that was creepy enough.
Right.
I turned it into this whole vanity EC thing where just desserts. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
it happened to someone who deserved it.
Yeah.
And it ended ugly, you know. So I mean, I did that with 5 stories, and that was my first script. Straight up Creepshow 3, and then they made a Creepshow 3, and I was like, damn it.
Yeah. No, I know that was bad. That was that was really bad.
But it was proof it was proof that I could do it. It gave me confidence, and I recommend to anyone writing right now, even if you do something that's not going to see the light of day, you could take an IP and just be like, just to practice, make it your own.
Right.
That's what gave me the confidence to go, okay.
Maybe you should explain to what IP is, maybe if they don't know.
Intellectual property.
There you go. Just in case.
So yeah, if you're a fucking Star Wars fan and you want to do like fan fiction, write a Star Wars script. Who gives a fuck? Just do it to see if you
I think
can.
that's a great idea because it's giving you the opportunity to work with existing characters you already know personalities.
Right.
So it's like, how can I put them in a different situation and build off of that? It's actually a really cool lesson because I never started that way.
No.
Like when I started, it was like, I just was trying to create something new and, like my own stories, of course, picking and from different films and, scripts and stuff and adding things together.
We all borrow from everything.
Definitely. Yeah. No, for sure. Which, I want to get into that stuff 100%. I think we're coming down to the end of this one, but it's like, I think getting into the next episode, it's delving into this kind of parallel that we share, put us on a path to
Which
meeting.
is crazy.
It is because
it really is kind of
they're
funny.
so similar,
it's eerily similar.
Yeah, so it's like it's a cool story, like it really is, like how similar our paths were, and I mean the same influences, and even. But not the same movies, but the same filmmakers.
Same filmmakers.
And we pick we pick these movies, and I appreciate your picks, and I'm sure, you do as mine.
Yeah.
But it was like, when we first met, again, like I want to get into that in the next, in the next episode of like how we met and stuff. And, it's really going to kick off for me. Like, I'm going to do this.
Yeah.
How the fuck am I going to do this?
Yeah. How am I going to put myself out there?
So that's what we're going to get into next time. So
sounds good.
I think it was a good one.
Yeah.
For sure. And I look forward to the next one.
Yeah. Hopefully the listeners do too. And you glean some information, and hopefully that's what we can bring you guys week to week.
Hell yeah. All right. Well, that's it. Until next time.
See you guys.